All right, everybody. So thanks for joining me today. I know we have a few people will probably be rolling in. I'm really glad to be doing this session again, a little bit different than kind of how I've done some of the previous year sessions. I had a few kind of, I don't know if any of them on here, coworkers said, how am I going to talk about how to build a PowerShell module for about 30 minutes?
Consumer space, we're all conditioned by, the sum of
Thank you.
our lives are more digital than ever before. And as we use digital or our use.
I will try to mute if I can find it.
All right, perfect. Thanks. Figured how would we talk about PowerShell for 30 minutes, but it's a little bit more of just how to do it, but a little bit about why to do it. So my name is David Stamen. I am a staff field solutions architect focused on virtualization and cloud solutions here at Pure Storage. Prior to coming to Pure about 18 months ago, I worked at VMware where I was a technical marketing architect for vSphere Lifecycle, as well as vSphere with Tanzu. I'm also a VMware code coach, as well as a VMware vExpert. And so a lot of the sessions I've kind of done in the previous years for code were really around APIs and automations and kind of how to use these modules and kind of how to build them. But I think one thing that has kind of helped a little bit of people is kind of understanding not just how to build them and how to use them, but how can we actually publish them and actually utilize them in a little bit of a different way. And so if we kind of go back, really, it doesn't seem that long ago, right? But in the early days of PowerCLI, right, there was an exe that you used to have to download and install, right? Really, PowerShell modules were very difficult to manage. You had to download them, you had to install them. Anytime you ran a script, you had to make sure you were doing an import module or an add PS snap, right? If you forgot to put that in the beginning of your script, right, it wasn't there. If customers didn't emit or install, they didn't really work. The code has always kind of been the same, but you kind of had this whole prerequisites of getting everything set up and installed. And so really over the past few years, a lot of things have really changed and have made this really something for the better. You have the ability to use the PowerShell Gallery. And what this allows you to do is easily manage and maintain PowerShell modules. And so when the time comes to have to execute a script, you no longer need to import them. You no longer need to download them. It's a very easy way to kind of manage it, right? It is when you need PowerCLI, well, you go to a brand new machine and you type install module vmware.powercli. If you don't have internet access, well, you can do a manual download, or from one that you have internet access from, you can do a save module. And then from there, you can do an install module offline. And the really great part about this is that when you need to execute a command within a module, they're just automatically imported, right? They're installed on runtime, which is why a lot of time when we go and actually look at PowerShell and we do like a get dash module, there's very few that are actually listed there. You kind of have to do get dash module list available to see all the ones that are actually there. And so it really makes streamlining of managing them and installing them a little bit simpler. But what happens when you need to do an update, right? Very simple. Just like a lot of people might use like brew, right? You just do brew update. It goes in and updates everything for you. Well, the same thing applies with PowerShell, right? When you need to update the module, you don't need to understand, well, what is the latest version, right? You can do an update module, vmware.powercli, right? It'll go out to the PowerShell gallery, look for the latest version, and install that for you. The one thing to kind of remember that if you do use update module, the previous versions are not removed. And that means that that's really mainly for backwards compatibility. And so if you truly want to update a module, you can either uninstall the existing version and then install the new one, or there's really a bunch of commandlets out there that'll kind of look for the get module list available, find whatever the latest version is, and then automatically remove the previous ones. It's not necessarily bad to have all these previous versions, but it is something to kind of be aware of. And so now that we kind of understand, well, why should we use this next generation kind of modules? Is let's look at building one, right? An example I have here is that before we start to build one, right, we kind of have to figure out what code do we want to create, right? In the example, right, we can look at what do you want to do, right? Does it exist? Because if what you're trying to already do exists, why are you going to create a brand new module, right? Whether you're writing some code, which is an example here, right? This is something I presented on last year. It was my VCSA update module. I wanted to be able to manage updates from a vCenter perspective with PowerCLI, and it wasn't something that natively existed. But looking through the APIs, right, the API itself existed. And so I was able to use the CIS service to go ahead and execute some tasks and really bundle that into a module and publish it, right? It was put into a function. But scripts today or modules today aren't always about functions and codes and doing something, right? It could be a way to do a script, right? And that's going to be the example I'm going to kind of run through when we get into the demo. And so put it into a function, publish it, and have it easily there. It might not always be something you publish externally, but it could also be something that you publish internally as well. If you don't know what you're trying to do and how to get it there, there's really a lot of great developer tools that VMware provides. So within the HTML5 client, right, there's now the Developer Center, which allows you to get front and center. And so here's an example on the left of using API Explorer. It used to be a completely separate interface that you have to go to. But what this allows you to do is explore all the APIs that are available, right? In this case, this one shows deprecated, right? So we know that it might be changing in the future. But we have the ability to actually look at what the calls are, see what the responses are. If we actually want to look at the curl command, right, we can see what that is. We can also explore a lot of this with DCLI. On the other hand, right, on the right-hand side, we have code capture, right? This was called Onyx way back in the past when it was a Flash-based client plugin. And this allowed you to pretty much do something in the UI and go ahead and figure out what the actual code is, because we don't always know how to dig through the documentation to understand what we want to do, right? In this case, I was creating a resource pool, right? Really, if I was using PowerCLI for this, right, it just would be new dash resource pool and pass in some parameters. But with code capture, it will spit it out into a couple of different kinds of code, right? You can output as raw .NET code. You can also, I think it's Go, it's been a while since I've been in there, but there's 4 different languages, and I think it's JavaScript that you can export to. So really how you're looking to actually automate and code is really a way. And so again, if there's not a script that already does it, there's not a command that has already existed, we'll run this, figure out what it is, and build a module around this. And so when we think about this as well, there's really a couple different kind of modules that you can create, right? Really, the 2 that we're going to focus on are the script and the manifest. The script is the most common type of module, which has a built-in script or function. There's also binary and dynamic, which are out there, but I really haven't seen a lot of them. And a manifest is really a script module that contains information about the module. And when we go through the demo of kind of how it looks like and works, this is going to kind of build all the information and all the descriptors of the function that we're going to do. But it's not something that is very complex and have to do, right? Microsoft has made it very easy that when we are actually building a manifest, right, we could create it manually and do all this, but they have 2 commandlets that make it really easy, right? We can create a new module manifest, pass in the path to your file, and then pass in each one of those parameters. What it's then going to do is build that manifest for you. What happens if you do create it, right? What if you're missing a parameter? What if you built it from scratch? Well, there is that test module manifest to make sure that it is actually something that is applicable, right? It's going to be successful. But what happens over time, right? You're incrementing versions of your module, right? Maybe you're just increasing the version. Well, you can go ahead and increment it with just certain things and updating the existing one and having it the most up to date. And so when we think about this, right, building the module is very simple. We write some code, we put it into a function, we go ahead and do the new module manifest and have it create a manifest, and then we can go out and publish it. And so publishing it, again, has been very simple. We're going to kind of walk through this, but what you'll first do is go to the PowerShell Gallery, log in with your Microsoft account, and create an API key, right? This will go out there and allow you to go ahead and do this, right? So when you look at a scope, you can either have it for new package versions, for all, give it the ability to not only publish, but also to remove. you can have it set to expire in whatever amount of time, right? The only time you use this key is when you're pushing either updates or publishing your module. When we look at publishing the module, there's again a commandlet, publish module. You pass in the name or the path, you pass in your API key, and then it'll go out and publish it, right? It's a very simple, streamlined task. When you go and need to update it, right, you'll just pass in the new path and you'll be able to go from there. And so the next thing we're going to do is, right, let's jump in and do a demo, right? This is code. We want to talk about automation. We just don't want to kind of present on this. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a demo. And again, this is live. I did pre-record this a little while back and things were smooth. And so I'm kind of hoping that we will have the exact same experience here. So what I've done here is I've created a commandlet, right? This was just a demo function that I created, right? A lot of times we might look at trying to tackle a specific use case. Again, in the past, I went ahead and created a function for VCSA updates. But sometimes we might have a recurring task that we always need to do. And sometimes we have a script, but it might be stored on a machine. It may not always be portable with us, right? We want something that we can easily go out and figure out. And so what I can do here is, if again, I do a get module, right? We can see here that I don't really have that many modules that are actually loaded, right? I went ahead and I've installed this. If we do this get module list available, again, this is going to be a really long list that shows all of the modules that we've installed over time. But as we do things, right, they're only going to be loaded in runtime. If I want to go ahead and do some testing, right, I have built this script. And so what I'm going to do is to validate that it actually works, right, is I'm going to go ahead and do an import module. Again, this is just to validate that once I've built the module, it's going to work. I'm going to go ahead. Nope, I don't want to do that. And I'm going to do the TF and file. And because I probably loaded it, I'm going to do a force to make sure it overwrites. Once that is there, right, the best part about when you build a function is making sure you do it in the accurate thing, right? You put in notes, you put in synopsis, you put in descriptions, you build an example. A lot of this will be passed through the actual function if you ever have to do a get help. And so in this case, what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a, double check here. Where is it? Come on. We're going to do a get-vm cluster info. I am going to pass in my server, which will be my vCenter. I'm going to pass in my user. And that, I think that was my test user. And let's do the password. And that should have been. Now we can go ahead and look. And a lot of the stuff is actually going through and actually making sure that you have there. So in this case, I didn't put in the right credentials. Oh, actually, I forgot to pass in the cluster. So this will be cluster, and then this will be management cluster. I also put in the wrong password. So let's go ahead and try that here. Now we can go ahead and change that. Always the fun part about live demos. So what I was able to do here, right, is go ahead and put in that I built this commandlet that outputs this. And so we know that we've gone ahead and modified what we're actually utilizing. How can we do this? And so in this case, right, is say my management needed a report. I need to know from my clusters, how many hosts, right? How much CPU do I have available? How much CPU do I have used? How much memory do I have available? How much memory do I have used? Right, a very easy way that you can go out there and kind of just play with the data you have. And so now that we've had this, right, is I've made some changes. I've went ahead and built this, right? I'm going to go ahead and remove my file because this was from a previous example. And so to actually build the commandlet, we are going ahead and I am going to create that module manifest. And so I gotta find my example. It's hiding behind my PowerPoint. It's hiding down there. And so the very first thing we're going to do is there's a couple of ways to kind of build this. We can pass in all of the independent variables. But I'm going to go ahead and paste this. And kind of one of the better ways to do this is with splatting, right? You just do the module settings, you pass in an array. And so what I'm doing is I'm passing in the root module. I've specified a module version. You're going to want to talk about compatible versions because maybe you're building it to support PowerShell Core. Maybe you're supporting to pass on PowerShell Desktop. You're going to put in the author, your company, copyright, a description. Functions to export will include the actual functions within your function that or within your module that you want to export and actually have auto completable, and then really any additional information. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a new dash module manifest. We're going to go ahead and pass in the module settings and the path will be where we actually want it to be stored. So it's going to be /user/statement/document/demo-module-code connect 2021 /demo-module-code connect 2021 .psd1. And then cannot find a part users. Oh, typo. Then benefits of live demos. It's gonna work. Forgot another folder. And here I should double check. Hey, there we go. So now when I do a list, right, we now have that PSM file, right? It was generated on October 5th, that is today, with module version 2.2, core desktop, randomly creates a GUID. We have our author, our company name, our copyright description, all of that. And so again, there are many, many fields that can be added. They're just commented out because they're not one of the required ones. But some of the useful ones that you might want to put in are a lot of this information for private data. If you're using a license, point to the license. If you have a project, right? A lot of times when we do open source items, you're going to want to put it on GitHub and kind of share it there. So that will be a good thing. If you want to have a really nice icon in the PowerShell Gallery, you can go ahead and add that. Release notes and all types of different flags. So now that we have this, right, let's go ahead and jump to the PowerShell Gallery. And so here I am logged in. And so again, we can look at the packages that we've already had, right? There's a couple packages that have been published, but what we're gonna wanna do is we are going to create an API key. And so what this one will do is if we create a key, call it VMworld, we can say it can expire in 1 day. We have the ability to publish packages and versions. Again, you can target where you want to update it. And we can go ahead and create it. And so again, when you do it, you need to make sure you're copying your key because it's only going to be able to do that. If you want to reuse that key, you either need to regenerate it or delete it. And so now, once that is done, all right, we are going to actually publish our module. So if we go to back to my code and we do publish module, right, we're going to pass in the path, which will be our, hopefully I'll type this the right time the first time, user/dstatement/documents/github/demo-module-code connect 20, I don't know if I can update that. Maybe 2021, yep. And then we're going to do the folder. And then we're going to pass in our NuGet API key, and then we're going to paste our key. And so only takes a moment. Oh, that's already in the repository. So again, what we'll do is we'll go back to our code. I guess I had already done 2.2. Talk about rehearsing this a bunch. We'll publish it. I guess I got to do the update module now. Then we publish it. Hopefully it likes version 2.3. And while we're going through this, if anybody has any questions about any of the stuff, we can definitely go and review that. So again, now we can see that it published. If we go back to our PowerShell Gallery, I have got an email saying that it has been published. If we do a search and we search for VMworld, there should be, next I call it demo, Code Connect. What did I call it? There we go. Demo module Code Connect 2021. We can see that it's been downloaded 8 times, right? We can see that 2.3 is the current version that was installed. And so now our module has been done. If you want to go ahead and install it, you want to play with it, you can copy this, install it from here. If you want to have it deployed with Azure Automation, you can have it deployed there. If you want to be able to download it, you can download the raw NuGet file. To make sure that no one can go ahead and change anything, I'm going to go ahead and delete that key. So just in case someone goes back and does the recording, I won't forget that I had published. So now what we can do is if we go back to our PowerShell window, I can do update dash module, demo dash module dash code connect 2021. We'll go ahead and be able to download the latest version and be able to run our commandlets natively without having to import it. So a really great way to play with your scripts, get your functions out there, begin sharing. There's a whole world out there. You can definitely look at what's there. William Lamb had done a lot with PowerCLI. He's also created some of like the workload management ones. So it's really a lot of great products out there. So with that, does anyone have any questions? Has anyone done any of this publishing with modules or thought that it would be a really great way to kind of share items with the community? I think is Q&A open or is chat? I guess people can post in chat. I guess we could potentially also unmute yourself and ask any questions.
That's right. People can unmute or they can ask in chat. This is a live session and you can also enable your camera if you want to.
Yes, I'm not here all by myself. So there's Eric. So cool. Well, it was definitely great being able to present in front of 57 people. It almost feels like it's almost a real CodeCon session. Hopefully next year we'll all be there in person. And if you have any questions at all or any comments, right, you can reach out to me at David Stamen on Twitter. You can see some of the examples I blogged about on my blog, davidstamen.com. And then from there, other than that, kind of a short and sweet presentation. Didn't want to keep it any longer than needed. So thanks, Rito, for your claps. So awesome, Michelle. Yeah, it really is easy once you kind of realize that. So thank you, everybody. And then with that, I guess I'll pass it back to you, Eric, or Corey. If not, I guess we'll end the session. So thank you, everybody.